And here we are. We are live yet again on Coffee Talk. That is at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, as well as sharing on Prepper University on YouTube. We're doing that too. And now fistfulofradio.com, fistfulofradio.com, where apparently you will find me every day, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And here is Daniel. Say hi to everybody, Daniel. Daniel doesn't want to say hi. Daniel wants to get down because there's a toy on the floor he's been tearing around with. Careful now. As we start greeting people here on Friday, what is it? August 4th already. Friday, August 4th. We see Helter. We see Delo. Delo says he made it. Yes, you did. Dragon is here. Who else is here joining us this afternoon? Bingo is here. Urban is here. Says had to run away yesterday, but in for the long haul today. Well, glad you could make it. Stacy is here. Fluke Man is here. And Bingo says, I actually got the notification on time. Holy snikes. I just dated myself. Wow. And Monkey says hello. Monkey is here. And yeah, that's been an issue. That's been an issue with YouTube, that they do not give you regular notifications on time, unfortunately. That's been a big issue, no matter how early I set it up. Armit says, fistful of radio, paw full of fish. I guess so. And Christy says, me too. Me too. Got your notification, did you? So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you are in, because I do get people chiming in from all over. Again, hey, Fistful of Radio, check it out. Please do find me on Fistful of Radio, again, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday, and take a look at some of their other content. You may find something interesting. And Cyberjacker is here, or Cyberjack Senior. Okay, Cyberjack Senior. And I do read off as many of the comments as I can, because there are people who are listening and not watching. And so if I just go on, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Special thanks again to the people that have participated thus far in the GoFundMe project for the stray animals that we take care of. And there is Daniel on the floor. That's the toy he was playing with, that Christmas tree on a little string there. He loves that thing and drags it all over the house. But additional shout outs are required for people that have participated in the last few days. So Lewis, Judith, Bo, Mark, Karen, and John, thank you very much. Thank you very much for helping out with that. Means a lot. It really does. Nathan says, that's from the Truman Show. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. Is it? I don't know if I saw the Truman Show. And Urban says there is double notification required. First, you click on the notification, which brings up the preview video. Then click the second notification on the video itself. Goodness. Good night. That's too much. Armit says Coffee Talk has a radio voice. Well, thank you. I maybe that'll help. Maybe that will help. And he says that North Carolina is becoming North Brazil. Is it because it's that hot, or because it's getting that weird? And Natman, did I say Nathan before? It's Natman. Says, I hope your cats and your work is going the way you planned. Hey, I'm trying. But they're happy and healthy, and that's what matters. And again, what put us over was between the medication for Hobo, because he was very sick, and the other cat we call Old Dad needing surgery, which I showed them both in the last update that I put up on YouTube. It gets expensive. I mean, if any of you have ever dealt with veterinary bills, although we do get a break because they don't charge us for housing. Like they kept Dad for a week because they didn't think he was going to make it. Wasn't charged for that, and also we're not paying for spaying and neutering either. So we've been getting we get our breaks here and there. We'll take them where we can. And so we appreciate, and Halo House, which is a dog shelter in Georgia, has helped us to get vouchers for the spaying and neutering. And that man says, yes, Max radio voice. Max Headroom? Who remembers Max Headroom? Max Headroom predicted YouTube. Who knows that? Armored says, the more people vote, the worse the system becomes. Yeah, that's if your voting counts. Does it count? You know how I feel about that, I'm sure. We're going to dive into the news here in a moment. And Broken Gardening is here. Thanks for joining us today, Broken Gardening. Whichever channel you happen to be watching on, whether it's Coffee Talk on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Live, because they have at locations now to help you find the channel better. Because if you look up Coffee Talk, you'll never find it because they buried me. And Prepper University, which is a dying channel. It was on the move for a while, and then it got suspended once, like 2 years ago. And then ever since then, it really hasn't recovered. It just keeps getting worse as it gets shadowed out of existence. And Bingo says, The Truman Show. I just watched that the other day. I don't know if I ever saw that. It sounds familiar, but I don't recall watching The Truman Show. And we'll dive into some news here in a moment and look at what's going on in the world, or what's not going on, as the case may be. Broken says, Coffee Talk is where I am. Saw it on my homepage feed. Haven't seen you in a while. I've been here. And that's kind of the point, is they don't tell you anything. Zane is here. Hello. They don't notify people when videos go up. They don't notify people when you do stuff. And that's how they oppress you. And then eventually you get fed up with it and you just quit. No, not Jim Carrey. Nathan says Jim Carrey predicted reality TV ? No, Max Headroom did. Max Headroom, the old school computer generated, the original CGI talking head that was a host for MTV, the 24-hour host, Max Headroom. There was a live action television show of Max Headroom that lasted for one season. And in that show, it was set in the future, and there wasn't like it wasn't like the three major networks and cable TV anymore. There was like 100,000 networks. Everybody had a network. There was a guy that they focused on from time to time that was running a TV show out of his trailer. He had a dish on the roof. And so everybody, they would go and open their own channel and broadcast. That's kind of what YouTube is. And I'm like, yeah, Max Headroom, the show, predicted that in the early 80s. And Nathan, Nathan says, have you considered other video sharing sites? They don't work. I've tried them. I'm on Rumble. There's no viewership at all. I've tried Steam. I've tried a couple of others. There's just no audience. YouTube, unfortunately, is a monopoly, and they get over as a result of that. Bingo says it has Jim Carrey when he was the TV show. They secretly filmed him. Oh yeah, reality TV. Yeah, predicted reality TV. I was talking in terms of everybody having their own television network. So I got the terminology confused. Zane says Max Headroom was not CG, strangely enough. And he says he's on Odyssey. So our first little news snippet, and this is something that bothers me a lot, but you're seeing this in many states now. And I've brought this up about Florida several times, because there's a pastor he's in his 80s, and he's been arrested in Florida several times for doing this, because it's becoming illegal in more and more states. And this comes from The Guardian. The Guardian is the website I'm looking at. And it says Houston volunteers face thousands in fines for feeding homeless. Now, if I'm not mistaken, in Texas, if you're caught feeding a homeless person. The fine is like $2,000. It's something crazy. And what is this? Nathan says Empelmon channel has several very good videos about how bad YouTube is or has gotten. I've done a few here. I've talked about it. I've shown a few pieces of correspondence from YouTube and things like that. They're very vague and they're really good about trying to hold you down. But this is about Houston. And I'll read on here. Volunteers with a group that has been feeding Houston's unhoused population since 1994 are facing a potential $80,000 in fines after a crackdown by local police. Food Not Bombs, that's the name of their organization, is currently disputing 44 tickets issued by Houston Police Department for giving food to homeless individuals outside of the Houston Public Library. If a jury finds them guilty, I'm assuming that that's a place where they hang out a lot. You know how some of them have their spots? There was a public library and a post office in Elgin, Illinois, where you could find a lot of homeless people hanging out. If a jury finds them guilty, they can be fined the maximum penalty of $2,000 per fine. That's insane. With the group noting they could owe over $80,000 in fines at this point. Can you imagine giving a homeless person a sandwich, just trying to be humane, and a cop comes up and gives you a ticket and for $2,000? That, you know, where you show me where the ethics are in that. And this is why this sort of thing pisses me off. The fines stem from a city ordinance passed in 2012 mandating that groups get permission from the property owners, even if on public property, to distribute food to more than 5 people. The ordinance was never enforced, according to the group, until recently. A petition to rescind the law was signed by more than 75,000 people and submitted to the Houston City Council in 2015. You know, the City Council doesn't give a damn about your petitions. Show me an example of where a petition actually affected anything. Nick Cooper, a volunteer with Food Not Bombs, criticized the impact that the anti-food sharing law has had on food sharing services for the homeless, and that the time and effort fighting the citations is having on volunteers. We're just going into court, sitting there all morning, and then they reschedule us, and then we come back and they reschedule us, having to take days off of work. This is getting into 40 different jury trials that we're trying to get. So it's really taking up a lot of our time. And they do that on purpose because, you know, they can start penalizing you for the amount that you owe, and they can add more to it. So they tie you up in court. It's a same team tactic. It's the same team tactic being pressed on you by the court system, doing a little behind the doors handshake with the DA. Dragon says the cops are mad because the volunteers are actually protecting and serving the public. A society that does not care about the poor and hungry is a society that is doomed. And Nathan says, how was that considered a crime? How did it get this bad? Who authorized this? City Council did. It was a way they knew people were going to still do it, and we can bog them down with fines. I'll tell you one thing. The way they'll get out of this is probably with a GoFundMe to pay it off, and then the city still gets their money, don't they? Zane says the yuppies and Jeff Bezos. Okay. And, is that KLR? KLR Writer says great time to apply for jury nullification. I don't like juries. I've talked about that plenty of times. The system doesn't really work. I've been on jury duty myself, and it's a disaster. Helter says people are allowed to aggressively protest alphabet events that the library itself runs, but are not allowed to peacefully feed people outside after it closes. Strange times we're living in. And again, you can find this in many states. Urban says it's called lawfare. Lawfare. Zane said true, except even knowing that jury nullification exists before get on jury is a crime. And Nathan says, you ever just do things, you don't pay parking tickets, you don't have to pay the fine. Unbelievable. Bingo says, to play the devil's advocate here, they don't want people to feed them because, let's be honest, being homeless is more of a life choice nowadays. If you feed them, it'll draw more. I don't agree with it, but that's their view on it. Well, they need to designate a place where they can be fed then without the nonsense. And yeah, there's a lot of them. They like to be homeless. That's true. I've talked about that plenty of times, having worked with them myself. My wife has worked with them. A lot of them, They want to be homeless. They like it. Okay. Sorry. They like it. There's a lot of them that are addicts, drugs, alcohol, whatever. There's a handful that are homeless because of mental problems. There's a handful that are just disenfranchised. But still, it's heavy-handed. It's heavy-handed, and it scratches the surface of what is moral and what isn't. And then they got to play games by constantly rescheduling and constantly rescheduling. Nat Man says, I get all notifications for both your channels. Unfortunately, I don't have the time. However, don't I get all notes from other channels I follow? I'm related to Survival Bang Bangs, Equality, etc. And Monkey says, oh, the court will be pissy if you try to jury nullification. We're still talking about nullification. And Bingo says, I don't agree with it just being clear. No, I understand. It's too heavy-handed. There's a better way to do it than just issuing fines. And the county issues fines or the state issues fines because they know they'll earn money from it. That's why they write traffic tickets. That's why they have police cars. You can't tell what it is until the lights come on. You know, it's a business. It's a business for them. And this is a way to screw them over. And they just keep making the fine bigger. And like I mentioned, I can't remember his name. That pastor in Florida has been arrested several times for it. And it bothers me because I've seen the news clips where the sheriff deputies who are arresting the old man, and remember, he's in his 80s, are like, yeah, I hate having to do it, but it's the law. You hate having to do it, but you will anyways, because you're a law enforcement officer and not a police officer, and there's a difference. Helter says the cops are there to intimidate. The mayor doesn't want people feeding the homeless because they don't want the homeless in their town at all. Well, if trust me, if they can't get a meal, they'll get worse. And Helter says instead of addressing the issue, they choose to ignore it and try to keep it a secret. And Zane says if you tell a jury that they are the jury in a case, it's a crime. And then Fluke Man says official reason the fine is to avoid having mass groups of homeless in one area. Real reason, money. Yeah, because they're going to be there anyways. They always hang around libraries. Urban says lawfare is warfare using the law against law-abiding citizens. The legal process is the punishment. And Nathan said you should be able to feed the homeless at some sort of shelter for the homeless. And then Zane says the judge isn't even really necessary in a jury case when the jury has the final say, as we go on down through here. And Monkey said the one thing I question is who can you tell is actually homeless versus a person that's faking homelessness? They won't want anything to eat. Offer them a sandwich and see how they look at you. Because there are people who pretend, and it's a scam. Odds are anybody you see holding a sign, homeless and hungry, any help, and they have a cup that people are putting change and money in, it's probably a scam, and they have somewhere to go. That's been my experience, that those guys are often scamming people. They're often ripping people off. And Nathan said most police cars don't look like police. It's like they're trying to hide. They are trying to hide. They don't want you to know that they're the police because they're trying to entrap you. And they tell you, and they've been brainwashed into believing, many of them, that the whole purpose behind writing speeding and moving infraction tickets of various types, moving violation tickets, is for public safety, and that the fine is supposed to be to discourage people. Does it stop people from speeding? Does it stop people from making a right turn at a stop sign without putting their signal on? You get the point? Or not parking at least within 8 inches to the curb and other things they write tickets for. Does it stop it from happening? No, because it's not a deterrent. But they know that enough people are going to make enough mistakes that it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money that the various counties and states and cities rake in from writing tickets constantly. And if you really, really study the laws, and I looked at this a couple of years back, I think I did a video on it too. Technically, there's no way to drive without making some type of an infraction because how the laws overlap each other. For example, on the highway, right? Highway, freeway, whatever, there are laws in place that depending upon the flow of traffic, you can not only be ticketed for speeding, but driving too slow or even driving the speed limit if the regular flow of traffic is faster for whatever reason. So whatever reason they have, they can find something. If they follow you long enough, you will make a mistake and they can pull you over. It's incredible how that works. And Johnny is here. He says, hello, just listening. And Christy says, we have a homeless encampment by my house in Clearwater, Florida. It's made the news recently because most of them are on probation for X, Y, and Z. According to them, they were told to live in the woods. That wouldn't surprise me if they were told to go out there. Nathan says, I work in the Army. I don't like the feds, but they pay me. Most likely that's the reason most police and military do what they do. Yeah, it's a check, but they're loyal to that check. They're more loyal to the check than they are to the oath. That's the problem. Christy says the sexual predator registry shows many on the list. Oh, that's nice to know. And Zane said most of the homeless that sit out on the corner are lying about it. Yeah, if they're out there begging, odds are it's a scam. Odds are it's a scam. And yeah, Monkey goes on, tickets are for quotas. Every job has a quota that has to be filled. And that's true. Saying, of course, chiming in, it's never a deterrent. It's never a deterrent. Sorry. Oh, John is here. Says, fellow cat shepherd. He made it. Glad you could join us today. Fluke Man says, seen a video of a man that claims to be homeless and happily because the state of California gives him $12K a year. If that's true, it's outrageous. It probably is. Oh, Daniel perched on the seat back there, keeping me company today. WCM says, cops are the criminals that protect politicians. John says, road pirates. Yeah, I touched a nerve with that story, I guess. Remember, there's a difference. Law enforcement officer implies enforcing law, not morals or ethics, because many laws are not moral, are not ethical, and some don't even make freaking sense. But they will enforce it no matter how silly or foolish or unfair it seems. And I'm like, well, where is your ethics then? That violates the oath of office that you took. But again, those were just words that you said to get a job. And the words that you spoke are no better than the person that spoke them, unfortunately. Bingo says there is a lot of scammers that stand along the road begging for money. However, there is a group in my area that exposes some of them, actually. A lot of them, they have houses and jobs, etc. And you have to watch for that also with volunteers. You ever see like groups of kids that stand out on the corner and they're got a can and it's for like uniforms for their basketball troop or something like that, or our little league needs money for new gloves or something like that. That's a scam a lot of the times. I would not donate to anything out on a curb like that. There is an organization when I worked for the community outreach for unity in Massachusetts in the early to mid 90s. I worked for them for, oh God, it was an after school program. I probably didn't even work there a year. There were kids that were on the lookout for that because it was connected to a housing project. If you're in the Boston area, it's the Faneuil Hall, Faneuil Street housing projects that are on like Commonwealth Ave near Washington Street. If you're from Boston, Allston, Brighton area, you know what I'm talking about. And they would drive around with a van and collect kids and give them a can and signs and everything, looked all professional, and split the money with them. And that was back in the 90s. It still goes on. And I know in the Atlanta area, people have been busted like that with kids out with buckets collecting for like baseball uniforms and crap. So watch out for that too. Dragon says the government and the society shuns the lazy and homeless, but they discourage these same people from trying to take their lives. How strange. As we move along here, a couple more, and then I'll read the next article. Zane says fake homeless often make $5K a month or a week, depending upon the area. Well, damn, I'm in the wrong line of work. I need to get out there. I get a real dark tan too. Standing out there, panhandling, homeless and hungry, homeless and hungry. And Johnny says, I've donated to those groups of firefighters to collect in a boot. Haven't seen them in a while, though. Well, if it's the firefighters, you know what it is, because, nobody's going to scam with fire trucks. And they usually have their equipment out there because they need to have them out there. They have to be close to the trucks if they're out of the firehouse. So, that that's legitimate at the very least. Now, here's the next article, and somebody had requested this, and I don't know if they're watching today. They might catch it after the fact. And this is from, who wrote this article? K News out of California. And it says, baby killing trans death row inmate in California women's prison to get boob job funded by taxpayers. Because they asked me if I had seen this story, and I had heard it, but I hadn't read the story. And so I wanted to go ahead and touch on this since they brought it up. It says, a sadistic trans woman who beat her own infants to death. Is it a he? Is it a her? It's a dude, right? And going through a transition. I have issues with all of that, but we'll leave that alone for now. Is reportedly awaiting breast implants while being held in a women's prison in California. Jessica Marie Hahn, who was born Jason Michael Hahn, began identifying as a woman in 2019 and is now getting surgery at the cost of the taxpayer. According to claims by incarcerated women's advocate Amy Ichikawa, Hahn has been quietly moved into the medical unit at the women's prison and is now reportedly awaiting a taxpayer-subsidized breast augmentation. She argues that these procedures are costly and unnecessary, and that while this is happening, female inmates are being denied basic health care. California has one of the most liberal gender self-identification policies in the country, allowing inmates to request transfer based on their gender identity. And I've read articles with complaints from women's prisons from the inmates about dudes being transferred into female prisons now that are claiming to be women or identifying as women, and that they're assaulting the female inmates and causing other problems, and they're being allowed to get away with it. Since I guess we're going to say Transistor Respect Agency and Dignity Act went into effect, 357 male inmates have requested transfer to women prisons, including registered sex offenders. So that's where the problem lies. I think there ought to be a third holding facility for people that make identifications like that. You know what I mean? Commenting on the other item there, Monkey says, just put out a sign saying IRS is taking everything from me, and you'll maybe get donations. Yeah, I probably need to do that. Kaslinka is here. Thanks for joining us today. WCM says taxation is theft. No, it's extortion. It's extortion. I know people call it legalized theft, but it's actually legalized extortion, because they're not actually just stealing it from you. There's a penalty for not letting them take it. So it's extortion. But yeah, it's bad. Zane says this happens way too often with CIS women, but it's not reported often. And Nathan says, God, I effing hate the combination of words. That article is a nightmare. Yeah. And Zane says there's no excuse for this piece of crap. I hope they give her the needle. And that's the thing, too. If they're on death row, why are you paying for this? It's not cheap. Cosmetic surgery is not cheap. Christy says, can we please allow California to separate from the United States? Well, Lex Luthor tried it in the first Superman film. Remember, he had a nuke go off on the San Andreas Fault so that California would sink into the ocean, but Superman screwed that up. Oh, man. Anarchy is here. Anarchy says sex changes in prisons should be denied. Who's paying for it? You are. You are. You know that you are. It's taxpayer funded, of course. And Nathan says LG Alphabet has a lot of sex offenders. Don't get me started. because you know, a lot of you know I did a big interview series for the Boston Phoenix newspaper in the early 90s, like 1991, a million years ago, and I had to do a lot of interviews in that community, and it's some scary stuff. And one of these days I'll be able to freely talk about it. I just can't do it on YouTube. I get in enough trouble for some of the things I say. That's why I use code words when I can. Bingo says California fits more with Canada than it does with the USA. We should sell it and pay some of our debt. Yeah, indeed. There's Keisha. Keisha says, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Dragon said the transition person doesn't believe in human rights for anyone else, but expects taxpayers to care about his human rights. I find the logic odd. Well, it's selfish. It's selfish. And female busybody is here. Urban says sending taxpayer money to Ukraine is theft, money laundering, fraud, etc. Yeah, indeed. It's well, that is your taxation without representation. And we've talked about that many times. Basically, the idea of taxation without representation is that you don't know how your tax money is being spent, and you can't control it or dictate it or anything. They just take your money and spend it. And the government will tell you, because you have elected officials that decide what's to be done with the money, that's your representation. But I don't agree with that, because we can't control, regardless of who you voted for or how, you cannot control the idea of how that money is spent, where it's spent, what it's used for, who's getting it. You can't control it. Your elected official is going to do whatever the hell they want when they get in office. You can't trust that. You cannot trust that. Too many of them are corrupt. Too many of them will say anything to get their jobs. So, I mean, that's how it works. And Helter said, funny how evil is rewarded and good is punished. This is talked about in the Bible. Yes, it is, in great detail. You are correct. And Keisha made a $10 donation to the channel. Thank you very much, Keisha. Much appreciated. Goes a long way towards helping out with the stray animals that we take care of. And for those of you who are watching and not listening, you can see Daniel sitting on the other chair back there, one of the strays that we've taken in that I don't think he's ever going to leave. But it's all right, because he's a sweetheart. He's a really good boy. So thank you very much, Keisha. That goes a long way. We appreciate it a great deal. WCM says, selected official voting for the chains of your own enslavement. Pretty much. And Zane said, child abusers, women's prisons are treated like chomos. In male prisons, they are KOS most of the time, or beaten within an inch of their life. Yeah. And yeah, that's a whole other topic of discussion, but absolutely. As we move on here to other subjects, what else have I got listed here? Oh, remember, we're in the era of fluff pieces for Joe Biden now to make him look good. Remember? So you're going to be seeing a lot of that recently, and I've shown already 2 or 3 this week, fluff pieces in the media to make him not look like such a piece of crap. And here's another one. You'll love this if you haven't seen this yet. One more comment here. It says, Fluke Man, of all the trans people I hear, it's always trans women who want to use women's toilets, never trans men. Yeah, you never hear about that, actually. It's always dudes. It's always DQs. This is from Fox News. Biden roasted for dark Brandon coffee mug campaign. Maximum cringe. I don't know if you've seen this, but this is hilarious, okay? It's a coffee mug. If you're not sure what this is, he is selling he's selling coffee mugs with his face, and when you put something hot in it, the eyes turn red, and it's called Dark Brandon. And I'll read the argument, and then I'll explain it. I'll explain it to you here. President Joe Biden advertised a mug for his re-election campaign Thursday by sharing a video appearing to drink a cup of coffee emblazoned with his Dark Brandon persona. President Joe Biden tweeted, "A cup of Joe never tasted better," along with a video of himself appearing to drink a cup of coffee from a mug showing his face with glowing laser eyes. He declared in the video, "I like my coffee dark." The Dark Brandon meme emerged from the left as an edgy and intimidating version of the president that was a parody of the earlier dark MAGA meme. The meme also seeks to co-opt the Let's Go Brandon meme that originated among conservatives online after NBC reporter Kelly Starvast claimed a profane anti-Biden chant at sporting events was actually fans chanting "Let's Go Brandon." And you see a picture of him here holding this mug, and you see the eyes lighting up. This is an attempt to soften the blow of the concept of the chant "Let's Go Brandon" and what it stands for. It's a clever idea because people would probably want that. It's being sold by the White House, I think, on their website for like $22 plus tax and shipping. So it's not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap. But yeah, that's actually clever marketing. I'll give them credit. Credit where credit's due. That is clever marketing. Yeah, Christy here says, I'll purchase one. Yeah. And Zane says, that's funny. And then Female Busy says, sounds like they made it with AI. Preparedness says that Biden is a wreck. And Stars Wake said he would buy an FJB mug. I bet you they have them. But yeah, he may as well cash in on it, especially if he's going to lose. And it looks like he very likely could. And I see a couple of other here. Somebody was asking, Nathan, is that Raggedy Ann? That is, yeah, I'll go ahead and let me see if I can. That is, oops, I went too far. Trying to control the thing here. Raggedy Ann and Andy, a black Raggedy Ann and a white Raggedy Andy, and that's supposed to be me and my wife. Those are my wife's. That's her like little station over there in our office. And there's another shot of Daniel sleeping in the chair, looking very content. Good boy, Daniel. Oh no, that's too close. Let's fix this. Okay, let me get the camera back the way it's supposed to be. Get that back the way it's supposed to be. And then Christy says they won't be happy until the U.S. is destroyed. It feels that way, doesn't it? And Fluke Man says MAGA is much better marketing. Perhaps, but the mug is clever. Like I said, credit where credit's due. That is clever. That's a clever way to do it. That looks like something the opposition would do, doesn't it? Dark Brandon. And Monkey made a $10 donation to the channel. Thank you. It says, for kiddies. Also, what do you think about the media orgasm over DOJ indictment of Trump the third time? Yeah. Well, again, thank you for the donation. Thank you very much. Goes a long way towards our stray cat sanctuary project. Always appreciated. Any donation is appreciated. The indictment of the Trump. I mean, it's propaganda. They want to make him look bad. They want it to look like he's constantly in trouble and that he's going to go to jail any second. But they don't really want to put the man in jail because that kicks the door open for all former sitting presidents to be scrutinized to the point where they could go to jail for something that they've done. And I guarantee you they all have. Jimmy Carter, George Bush, every president who's still alive, Obama, you can find something and drag him into court and they could get jail time for it if he goes to jail. Somebody will find something. The door will finally be flung open and they'll be held accountable. They don't want a former sitting president to actually be held accountable for anything because that messes everything up for the future. The only one who won't be held accountable is Biden, because if he's found guilty of anything after he leaves office, they'll just say he's mentally incompetent. And Zane says the Raggedy Ann and Andy is very heartwarming. Yeah, she says that's us. I love it though. She's the best, honestly. WCM says Fed coin, see the logo of the coin beast system. And John says build a wall around DC. Yeah, they ought to have what is it? Snake Plissken escape from DC. They should turn that into a prison too. And WCM says left, white, red, blue programming propaganda, greatest show on earth, literally all the stage. Yeah, there's a lot of political acting going on. And Zane says if they jail them, they lose momentum. And the funny thing is, though, it kind of backfires because the more they do this, the more credibility they give him, because then everybody says, wow, if you want to get rid of him that bad, he might be onto something, right? Monkey said it's a Pandora's box for the former presidents. Indeed. And Nathan said, even if Trump is elected, it's a deep hole we're in. Yeah, and all, if the next guy that comes along, if he does a great job, if Trump gets reelected, does a great job, right? If the next person who comes along isn't right, it'll fall apart. It will fall right apart. More on censoring, because we were talking about this yesterday with Facebook. Now there's more that's been released about Twitter. I think this is Twitter that they're talking about here, but I'll read the article. I don't always read ahead. Sometimes I do, I don't always. So, you're getting an honest reaction. And this comes from the Daily Caller. The Daily Caller. Biden administration told Facebook, oh, it's Facebook again. We were talking about Facebook the other day. That censoring bad content was our primary concern. But what do you consider to be bad content, and who makes that decision? Former Biden director of digital strategy, Robert Flatherly, told Facebook in a June 2021 meeting that suppressing content was the administration's top priority regarding speech it did not agree with, according to documents reviewed by the Daily Caller News Foundation. And more is coming out of these transcripts every day now. Nothing will be done about it, but more is coming out. The White House regularly met with Facebook to discuss content moderation, often having disagreements, according to the memos obtained by the House Judiciary Committee. One point of contention was that President Joe Biden's administration preferred to censor information while Facebook wanted to combat it with more information. You're in trouble when Facebook is going to bat for its users against the White House because it thinks it's going too far with its censoring. Just absorb that for a moment. You guys are much longer on information. We're much longer on reduction, Flatherly noted at the meeting, according to a transcript on the meeting reviewed by the DCNF. What do you mean by that? Asked Facebook executives, whose name is redacted. We're keen on what platforms are doing to reduce the spread of bad information. The platforms are not funneling people towards bad content, Flatherly said. That's our prime concern. And what is bad information? What is bad content? From their perspective, bad information is whatever information doesn't jive with their narrative. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that it doesn't fit with what they're trying to convince people of, so they consider it bad. And like I said, when you're talking about Facebook, okay, which boils down to almost a spy agency. They spy on everything you do. All right. Sitting there and saying, gee, White House, you're going a little too far for us. We're nervous. Something is really wrong. All right. Something is really, really freaking wrong. John says Facebook blocked me forever. Did they? I told you I got in trouble on Facebook before. I don't know if anybody remembers what I got in trouble on Facebook with. See if anybody remembers what that was. It's funny. Urban says, meanwhile, Canadian news has been removed from Facebook due to Trudeau's bill. Yes, it has. And that's on here too. I have that lined up. That's something I was going to bring up because they're censoring the whole country. Christie says MAGA is the public enemy number one. Don't be fooled. So is anyone who is anti-woke. Trump is its only symbol. And WCM says all so-called world leaders all went to the same school of Rothschild's puppeteers. Yeah, a lot of them have, the big ones anyways. And Bo says Facebag is the greatest thing to happen to the CIA since the war on drugs. And Zane said even Facebook is like, okay, you guys are too aggressive. That's basically what that's suggesting. And that is scary. That is scary. That's like two hitmen going on a job and one hitman saying to the other, you know what? That's a little too gruesome. Can't we just kill him like this? Nathan said democracy is many votes, one counter. Republicans is many votes, many counts. And Dragon says one of the many reasons I don't have Facebook, people I know who are fronting as Mother Teresa that I know to be more likely the ministry of truth. Just prove me right. So many good people's reputations and careers ruined over dissent. True. And Natman remembers my cat food. I got a case of cat food that was infested from Amazon. And Johnny said, Macho Man, that is correct. I made a reference to Macho Man Randy Savage, and they thought I was doing a gay slur. And I got in trouble on Facebook because Macho Man. Okay. And of course, Macho Man Randy Savage. I'm sure you all know who that was. John confirms. He says, I'm blocked forever. Retired. He's a retired law enforcement officer. Wow. And Keisha says, I listened to a little bit of your live on that news site. Have you had any feedback? I haven't had any feedback, I don't think. But so far, I mean, they put me. I was originally supposed to be slotted for. You mean Fistful of Radio? This. Let me pop that up there. Fistful of Radio. I was originally slotted. I think I was supposed to get like Monday and Thursday, and then they changed it to 4 days a week instead of 2. So I must be doing something right. Stars Wake says he stays out of Facebook, but he does like the Messenger. He does like the Messenger. I think I had that other one. Yeah, it's Meta, and I'm going to pull it up. I think I had this lined up. And again, for those of you who weren't aware, I am now on fistfulofradio.com podcasting, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Thursday. If you open it up and you look at your menu, you will see me there as Coffee Talk. And so please do check me out there, and then take a look at some of the other content. You may find something interesting. This is the article that you were just talking about here with Canada. Let me see here. Yeah, Bo says in my best Randy Savage voice, oh yeah. He was he was classic. He was classic from the golden age of wrestling, which is from 1975 to 1995, right in that sweet spot in the mid 80s where wrestling was the best, absolutely the best. And this comes from the Associated Press. This article, Facebook owner Meta carries out threat to block news in Canada. Google plans to do the same. Yes, it is. DIY is here. He says, I know people hate this subject, but other than a cloth, how else could we substitute toilet paper long term? There's a lot of ways, and you can look it up, and there's some pretty unpleasant ways as well. One of the ways, of course, is if you were to use rags and wash them out, kind of like using disposable diapers, is a method that was used before there was toilet paper. Keep in mind, toilet paper hasn't been around for a very long time. Kleenex, it comes out of Kleenexes. I know I'm sidetracking here. We'll get back to the story in a moment. Kleenex was originally sold for the purpose of women removing makeup, but their husbands, the women were writing into Kleenex complaining that, hey, my husband has been using this to either blow his nose or wipe his behind with. Can we do something about this? And Kleenex was like, hey, that's actually a great idea. Instead of selling it for makeup, we can sell it for blowing your nose and wiping your behind. And that's where it comes from. But that hasn't been that long. Prior to that, people used to have a bucket with salt water, and they would soak rags. And of course, the salt would be a disinfectant. And if you were really rugged, because I have read also that on ships, it was old rope. They would essentially floss with old rope that was soaking in a bucket full of salt water. Scary, but you would have to be a rugged man. I can imagine the calluses, folks. Anyway, Associated Press Back to the article here. We'll go ahead and read this through. Menlo Park, California. Facebook and Instagram parent company Meta is keeping its promise to block news content in Canada on its platform in response to a new law that requires tech giants to pay publishers for linking to or otherwise repurposing their content online. That's just an excuse to force censoring. Google's owner, Alphabet, oh, isn't that appropriate, has said it plans to do the same, although it does not appear to have followed through yet. The company said in a June blog post that it will begin removing news links in the country when the law takes effect, expected in December. So get ready for it. Meta has threatened to block links to the news sites in Canada for nearly a year in response to the law, which passed in late June. The social media company said the Online News Act is based on the incorrect premise that Meta benefits unfairly from news content shared on our platforms, when the reverse is true. The changes mean that people in Canada are not able to view or share news on Facebook and Instagram, including news articles, videos, and audio posted by outlets inside or outside of Canada. Links posted by Canadian outlets are still visible in other countries. So basically, Canada is going to be North Korea here very shortly. That we're getting to that point. Helter said, if 2023 social media has been around in the early 2000s, Bush Jr. would have pressured the companies to censor claims Iraq did not have weapons of mass destruction. Yeah, that could be. And Zane said toilet paper is worth more than gold. Yeah, I know. You saw enough people fighting over it during the C virus. They damn near kill you for a roll of toilet paper in the supermarkets during that. And he goes on to say, yes, I've seen fights in person over toilet paper. Yeah, because everything ran out real quick when people panic because people are stupid. Starswake said, the history of toilet paper, Google said average user is one person, one roll every 4 days. During the shortage, people hoarding toilet paper got crazy. And Urban said Canadians are now behind the tech iron curtain. Yeah, they're East Germany now, right? We're getting there. Oh, Natman has to go. He said he was summoned by his wife. I understand. Yeah, North Maple, Korea, Zane says. Indeed. And Helter says they're doing this to cover up the real purpose of data collecting. Since day one of telecommunication, the people in power have been using all data against the people. Yeah, because the more information they have, the more they can hem you up. The more they can hem you up. And I've got one more here. I've got one more article of interest. This one will scare you. It's something that I knew about, but you may or may not know this about how the laws work in California where this is regarded. But it's interesting nevertheless. And this comes from Newsweek. Newsweek telling an actual news story? Say it isn't so. California child marriage ban faces opposition from Planned Parenthood. I bet it does. I bet it does. They want to help you to get an abortion, but they don't want you to stop children from getting married. That's very interesting. Reading into the article, again, this is Newsweek. With child marriage still legal in California, didn't know that, did you? Advocates are mounting a campaign to push the state to enact a ban, but their effort is facing surprising opposition from progressive groups like Planned Parenthood. Dozens of survivors of forced or child marriages traveled to California state capitol in Sacramento last month to protest the state's existing laws. Dressed in wedding dresses with their wrists tied and mouths taped shut, they called on state lawmakers to finally outlaw the practice. California, a solidly Democratic state, no kidding, was on track to be the first to pass an absolute ban on marriages for children under 18. But The legislative proposal was met with opposition from liberal organizations like Planned Parenthood, the Children's Law Center, and the American Civil Liberties Union. Think about it. Planned Parenthood, the Children's Law Center, and the American Civil Liberties Union are trying to keep child marriage laws on the books. The pushback comes out of concerns that imposing an age requirement could set the stage for a slippery slope when it comes to constitutional rights or reproductive choices, specifically that an age requirement could impede a minor's ability to seek an abortion. Really? That's your excuse? And it goes on to say here, California and Mississippi are the only two states where there is no minimum age requirement to get married. Most states have a minimum marriage age of 16 with parental consent, although it can range from as low as 14 to as high as 18, according to voting rights organizer Wise Voter. And some of this comes from California's ties with South America. South America has very, very low ages of consent. California, if I'm not mistaken, I did a paper on this in college. I believe that their age of consent is 12. So, and I could be wrong, and it could have changed since when I was in school, but I believe it was 12. And in South America, when you go to Mexico, it's 12. When you go further south, it can get as low as 9. So a lot of that is influence from South America. But we're not in freaking South America. We're in America, Jack. All right. And a child who is, you consider them too young to make any other decisions, but you'll let them get married. And that's not forced or coerced. That's a mess. That's a mess. That's scary. Zane says, I've never heard of this one at all. Yeah, there's some weird laws out there that have never been changed that go all the way back to the Old West, when California was annexed from Mexico in the first place during those wars back in the days of Kit Carson. John says that has to be a propaganda program. Good God. And then Zane says, I'm for the ban. Yeah, this is the only ban I can get behind. And John says, ban all the things. Bingo says, time to punch out. Okay, well, we'll see you. Thanks for joining us. And Christy says, I'm sure it's updated in South America. In rural areas, it's hard to track. I'd have to go and look it up again. Like I said, I did a paper on it in college, and that was a million years ago. But I just remember some of the numbers really stood out for me. And I think it was like Guatemala, it was 9 or something crazy. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. That is way too young to make those kind of decisions. Zane says, John, can you get behind an all-out gun ban? Ha! I'm sure he can't. Urban says, not just from South America, certain religious communities practice children promised for money. Yeah, that's true. You see that. In, so you're not allowed to talk about it, but some gypsy tribes do that kind of stuff. Especially Irish settlers are known for that. The group's called Irish settlers. Dragon says, this is done as part of reproductive freedom, ? If a child for some reason wants to marry at 16 but can't wait until 18, then that's a sign that the marriage likely wouldn't last. Yeah, there's a lot to be said about this article. This is some scary stuff. And Zane says, my man, I hate gun bans. Yeah, I don't believe in it either. And Christy says, I'm a student now in public safety focused in Homeland. And Paranoid is here. He says, good afternoon. You're late to the party, Paranoid, but we're glad you could join us. Zane says certain communities will sell brides. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah, what did I say, Zane? Irish travelers. Yeah, Irish travelers have been known for that sort of thing. But yeah, certain gypsy communities are known for that, the promised daughter kind of thing, and they have this whole thing that they do, this whole party that they do with it. It's almost like a little girl's beauty pageant. It's weird. I've seen video footage of it. But that's what's going on in California. And that's a ban I can get behind. And it's really interesting to look at the groups that are trying to resist this, that are trying to stop California from putting a ban on child marriage and change it to 18, which is how it is in most of the country. Most of the country. And I'll read them off again. The organizations that are advocating for child marriage: Planned Parenthood, Children's Law Center, and American Civil Liberties Union. So just remember those. Remember those, folks. That is terrible. Absolutely terrible. Zane said he met a Hindi lady who ran away from her family for trying to sell her off. That he was talking about the communities he knows who sell brides commonly are Indian communities. Yeah, that's in their culture too. To promise a child as a for marriage. Yeah, that does go on there as well. And that's what I got for you today. I hope you all got something out of that. Weird stuff in the news, things you may not have known about, some disturbing things. So, and that is disturbing. Yeah, those stories are disturbing. They're way too young to make those decisions. They're way too young to make a lot of decisions. And it's funny how you want to stop a child, and especially you're seeing a lot of this in the Western world right now. You want to stop a child from doing everything else. We don't want a child to know how to use a firearm. We don't want a child, and I mean under 18 or under 21. We don't want them to know how to use a firearm. We don't want them to smoke. We don't want them to drink alcohol. We're trying to protect them. We don't want them to do this, that, and the other. But when you're talking about something sexually related, they're all for pushing them into it now. And that's a huge problem, because if they're too young to make those decisions, they're too young to make sexually oriented decisions as well, in my opinion. Or as they say now, in my humble opinion. I'm not very humble about it. I'm very vocal about it. But yeah, thanks for joining us, everybody, today. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Again, thank you for everybody who was involved, has been involved thus far in the GoFundMe project for the stray animals. Means a lot. We really appreciate it. And we will do this again sometime soon. Remember, right now I am on Coffee Talk. If you're listening and not watching, at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, or Prepper University on YouTube. And remember, I can also be found on fistfulofradio.com Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Check it out if you can. Very much appreciated. And we'll try and do this again sometime soon.